begin with apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
We've got Princess Eddie, Robin and Christine.
Any others? So we've got some welcomes to do here. We've got some esteemed guests from elsewhere. We've got Councillor Nick Chard, who is the chair of the Kent and Medway Combined Fire.
He's behind you.
He's behind you. He's helping us with our peer review. We've got our new independent person, Sally Burrell, who's attending the first Borough Authority meeting. Welcome, Sally. We have Kevin Woodward, who is our temporary interim treasurer. Welcome. Temporary interim does sound even more.
I think I'm temporary.
Temporary. So welcome to the first meeting. And Guy Goodman sadly can't be with us today, so we've got Shadi Adair from now Wecker as our monitoring officer this afternoon. So welcome all. I'll pass the emergency evacuation procedure. Oh, before I do that, we are filming this, aren't we, for our very exciting YouTube channel, so over Christmas time. Emergency evacuation procedures, Chief Fire Officer.
Yes, good afternoon members, season's greetings to you all. There is no expected fire alarm test today. There is one fire exit within this room. Please make your way out of the building as quickly as possible, and the rendezvous point will be in the car park. You park your vehicle in that step this afternoon. Thank you.
Do we have any declarations of interest? So I should go on to Chair's business. Well, first of all, happy Christmas to you all. Thank you very much for the support you've given me over the last several months. And
sorry for our tardiness.
it has been noted. Several very unkind members just said to ask me to be a permanent exclusion or not. So happy Christmas to you all. Thank you very much for your support over the last several months. I've been asked to note to you, I think it has been released back to press, is the caring in Bristol, which we're doing at Temple Fire Station. Temple Fire Station, the 29th of December, will be manned by firefighters and volunteers from across the service at Temple Fire Station for a pop-up caring at Christmas style service to experience homelessness in the period between Christmas and New Year, from 12 noon until 2 p.m. on the 29th. So thank you very much for all members of the service for doing that. Really appreciate it. I'm sure the people they serve will equally be appreciative. So thank you for that. A technical issue, as you'll be aware, the HMICFRS report was issued today. During the course of this meeting, it's likely that myself and the Chief Fire Officer will be asked to be interviewed by the BBC. So when I have to exit, Councillor Chris Jackson, the Vice Chair, will be taking this chair as and when required. Thank you very much.
I have full confidence in you, Chair, that the meeting will be finished, Billy.
Thank you. That's down towards our colleagues, really. So we'll go on to minutes. We have the ordinary meeting of the 29th of September. I will happy to assign those off to the true and correct record.
Yep.
And the extraordinary meeting of the 13th of November. Okay, thank you. There was no request for public access, and we're going to committee minutes. The adjourned meeting of the Audit, Ethics and Governance Committee, the 21st of September. Sadly, Paul isn't here. Paul got his mother's been taken very seriously ill, so he's had to go to Plymouth to care for her. So that's the reason he's not here today. So I've been asked to move those minutes. Are you okay with those?
Yeah.
And equally for the one on the 21st of September, 7.2. Okay, and 7.3, the performance review and scrutiny committee. Tony, there is one for you there. Item 7.3 on the agenda.
Oh, sorry.
Minute 17, the various recommendations on the improvement programme.
So,
All okay?
I'll just leave them.
Thank you. And we go on to 7.4 on the agenda, Councillor Chris Windows on the energy contract. You happy to move that one?
Yes, I am, Chair.
You're okay with that? Good, thank you. And I go on to item 8, urgent action under standing order 5.1. As you'll be aware, sadly, poor Martin Warburg is not well, and so Lynn has been doing a wonderful job in terms of finance, but very well we have budgets and the like coming up. We thought it was incumbent upon us to assist her with the appointment of an interim temporary treasurer, so Kevin Woodward has been appointed by that. Myself, in consultation with group leaders and the clerk, have appointed Kevin, so that's a noting, I think.
Yeah, I did make my concerns about appointing somebody temporary because
Yes.
I didn't know background. I did ask, had we exhausted all avenues? And I think you had, haven't you?
I think we have, yes.
But like I say, I know Martin's ill,
Yes.
but I was a bit concerned that we had to do that.
Well, I mean, Kevin will say that he has had a great deal of experience within the fire service and was available, and we had a desperate need to give Lynn some help.
Yeah.
So I think it all fitted together
But I
very
did
well.
raise my concerns with it.
Okay.
With that noted.
So I'm going to item 9, which is the new constitution, which I think now in Paul's absence I'm going to be doing and moving off, so sorry if you're hearing my voice constantly. First I'd like to thank, for his absence, Sarah Pomfret, Neil Butters, we're on the working group that produced this new constitution document. The reason for going down this path was because to get a formally codified instruction document as to how we should work as an authority. I think we are pretty much unique in having the set of standing orders we previously had, where it's very, very hard, not only members, but also members of the public, to find out quite how we operate. So it was important to get a document together. It is, of course, it's our document, so as and when we want to make changes to it, we can as an authority do so. This document won't be set in stone that this is it forever. It was the first step in trying to get that codified document together. The one piece of work that we as a committee were very keen to do was to get a review of the committee structure. We thought it might be a step too far, so we'll be reviewing the committee structure, bearing in mind all the comments you made about numbers and number of meetings and the like, and that will occur formally at the March meeting, but we'll be speaking to everybody before that and getting involved in the way forward on that particular point. We did put a set of deadlines together in terms of responses. Councillor Shelford helped me put towards some comments, particularly on our grammar and our use of obscure English language, which is very helpful, thank you much. And the only other comment I had from Nick Will to do with who is absent today, who was concerned about the view as expressed in the past, about the disposals policy, and also about the employment committee structure. So I mean, as we are going to review committees in March, I think that it's more appropriate to do that now rather than today. Shazia, as you are new to us, but I think you've had the very wonderful task of reading the Constitution as a very much an independent legal officer. I think it's the first one Fire Authority meeting. Did you have any professional comments to make upon it?
It's very similar to the constitutions of Bristol and the Combined Authority, but I think actually it's really useful because the delegations particularly will help operationally on the ground to enable officers to just get on with the job. You set the framework, the parameters, and that's clearly defined in here. So I think there's still some work to do with code of conduct, but as I've said, ideally what I'd like is for all the public bodies to have the same constitutions, the same report templates. So at some point that is something we need to look at across all the local authorities, the fire authority as well. But it's a good document.
Graham.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I am very unhappy with this new constitution. I'm all in favour of having a constitution, but in view of what you've said, and in view of the large number of penciled comments that I made as I read through it, I would prefer it to be called a draft preliminary constitution. I know that you have set the scene for amendments. I don't think these are strong enough, because if we all walk under a bus, different buses of course, people will say, well, you've got a constitution, we'll have lost the ability to amend it, and I think it certainly needs amendment. I think that, to be honest, we are being talked into consideration of all sorts of things, but not getting on with the main task which the Constitution will help us with. And I think that we should be actually doing something different from what we are doing. And there again, the Constitution will help. So I'm not happy with it as it is, and I think it ought to be revised. The title should be revised.
Mark?
Chair, thank you very much. I did write some comments in, and I got them in by the drop dead date. I think I had some 64 comments or 65 comments on the Constitution as a whole. Some of it's mismatch and trivia, as you mentioned, but there are 12 big issues which I'd just like us to be able to debate here about the Constitution, and get a sense of feeling from the members as to whether this is the route that we want to go down. I suppose the first thing is to say that I found it incredibly difficult to read, because it's such a big bloody piece of work. I mean, I don't know how many pages there are. 125 pages. It took me 7 hours to go through it, and occasionally I had to reread things to fully understand where we were going with this. And whilst I absolutely accept that the Constitution should be written and we should vote on it and agree it, if we are going to revise it properly and read it properly, I think it should be broken down into chunks against discipline, skill sets, whatever you might wish to say, and that each part of that then gets reviewed on an annual basis through the year, rather than saying, there you go boys, crack on with this, reread it and look at it, because it is, people just won't do it. I mean, it was exceptional, I had 7 hours to do it. And so that's the first point. So could we break it up into smaller pieces that we can then revise and review regularly? I talked about legal language in here. Some of it was quite indigestible, and it would be helpful, because I'm a simple fellow, I can't deal with some of those big words. It would be helpful to make it non-legal language and non-technical language so that everybody could understand it. And I've given you some examples of that. I'll just give one now. On page 25, 1.19.1, the word impute is in there. That's a very precise legal word. For those of you whose grammar is not as good as mine, you will probably understand it. But it means attribute to or guess at. And I just wonder if we could use those sorts of phrases rather than impute, because it makes it much more easy to understand for everyone. Members' roles and responsibilities. I think we should be striving for operational and financial efficiencies, and I'd like that to be put into our duties. It's not in there at the moment. And also liaison, cooperation, sharing services with other blue light services. I think that should also be part of the Constitution. Moving on next, the General Purposes Committee. Previously, there was a General Purposes Committee that caused a lot of the problems that we found ourselves in. And I absolutely accept that officers and you, the chair, will need emergency powers to deal with emergency things. And those will have to be dealt with. You'll have to make a decision, get on and do it. And I absolutely accept that. But that should be exceptional, not as a matter of course. And therefore I don't believe there should be a General Purposes Committee doing routine business of the fire service and fire authority. Rather, it should only be used in extremis. And all of that duty should be spread around the other committees that we've got. We've got enough of them to be able to spread them around and make sure that all of us feed into that, and only use that General Purposes Committee for an exceptional issue that would happen between authority meetings. If it is to be such, then I think it's really important that the fire authority then formally agree to the recommendations of the General Purposes Committee rather than note them. Previously, we've only been allowed to note them, and in some cases we didn't actually know what went on in the meeting because they're all blank, because they were dealing with employment issues. And that, I think, was a mistake and led us to one or two problems that we're now trying to tidy up. The next issue is about delegation of power and control. I'm absolutely clear that the chief and his senior team need to have delegated authority to get on and do and make things work. But I'm very concerned that we keep a degree of financial and also risk scrutiny within the authority as a whole. And I'd like us to look at those delegated powers very carefully to make sure that we're not putting you in any danger. For example, part of your delegated authority currently under this scheme is that kit up to a certain value you can dispose of. And we have had other fire authorities, other senior fire chiefs who have who've lost their job because of that disposal process. So I'd like to protect you from that and make sure that you don't, those problems are not put onto your plate. We deal with that, particularly where there's financial or reputational risk at stake. Arrangements for dealing with complaints for members' code of conduct. And I know that you said, I'm terribly sorry I forgot your name.
Charles.
I'm very sorry. So first of all, I'm very pleased that you said that piece needs redoing. I agree with you, and I'd really like to know, is this just a cut and paste of what we had before, or is this brand new? And would you be able to give me an answer to that straight away?
I can't do it straight away. It is it's a standard code, so it's very similar to the WECA code, which a number of councils have signed up to, but it's different to other codes. So
right, I'd really like to know if it's a cut and paste of what we had before, or whether it's new, because if it's a cut and paste of what we had before, stand by, because I'm going to bring something to you. Next.
I'll come back to you on
Okay. Authority hospitality. Have we as an authority ever given official hospitality? And if so, why? I know the service might do so, and there are very good operational reasons for that. But as an authority, do we ever do any hospitality? Should we do any hospitality? So I'm very interested that that's in there, and whether it should be in there. I'm not sure I agree with that. The last piece, I won't go into all that, is that right at the back of this, there's a thing on numbers. It's section 14, specified amount. I think that's absolutely vital to be separated out and a standalone document that can be regularly changed. It can be referred to in the main body of the Constitution, but as part of the Constitution, you will need to change those numbers, I suspect, more than once a year, as and when codings change, money from government changes. But by having it linked into the main body, you may find that quite difficult procedurally to change them as and when you need to. That's why I think it should be separated out and referred to as the annex or another section. So if we could go back really, I suppose the big questions are, should we have it as one document or split up? And should we be delegating everything that's in there to the fire chief and senior officers, or should we restrict that delegation a little bit further? And that's what I'd really like to talk through.
Well, Sarah indicated she was next to speak, and I think we've already said that we're going to review the committee structure, so that will hopefully question your point about general purpose, special purpose committee. I think it would be incumbent upon us to have a regular review mechanism, so actually we constantly review the document anyway, and we should be bringing it back to the authority on a very, very regular basis. So I wholeheartedly accept that comment. We should be reviewing it. And I think it may be easier, and I would say I would prefer to have one document, because it goes back to the old system of having several documents, which is quite hard to find. Having one document I think is better. But
one document that's separated out,
Yeah.
I think it is very difficult to
Yeah.
see where each section would
But I think we should do that, and I think we should give ourselves a programme of review of those sections, or whatever schedule that the authority thinks is right, once a year, once every 2 years, or whatever, depending on the individual sections. I'll let Sarah speak next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the idea was to draw together the existing standing orders, put them in one book so that we'd find them and we knew where to look for things, and then review all of them over a period of time. Some of them we've reviewed more than others. Some of them have just been put in as they were, so they haven't changed. It doesn't come into force as a constitution, a new constitution, until May, with the next authority as such. But we did try to, where we saw there was old-fashioned language, we did try to simplify some of it. We've obviously missed some, but there were bits where we did point out things out to Guy and say, can you reword that because it doesn't make sense or it's too hard to read. Yes, the committee structure does need looking at, and we all agreed that it does need looking at, but we felt that was too much to look at in one bit, and that needs a separate series of meetings. I mean, anybody was welcome to join and put their point of view across at the committee anyway. It was open to all comments from everybody as we went along, but not many people did actually turn up.
Frankly, in my case, I didn't actually know you were doing it. I didn't know until about a month ago. When I met
there were several invites put out at meetings for people to
yeah,
join.
I'm not saying you didn't do that. I'm saying I didn't know, and it's my mistake for not doing it. I don't know how many other people knew the Constitution Working Group was happening.
People should have.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
I mean, as with all our authorities, I mean, we at South Gloss, we do go through an annual review of the Constitution anyway, which I think we must do here as an authority. And I think this Constitution needs to be looked at as a start, not as a finished document. It's a starting document. You've got to start somewhere. You've got to have something to review. So we've just piled everything together, changed what we've seen obviously needed changing, and then it's over to the rest of you to change the rest.
So could I just butt in one, and I know other people want to, recommendation 2A this afternoon. So approve the new constitution after having considered any amendments submitted by members in accordance with blah blah blah. I'm not sure I know where you're coming from, I know what you're trying to do. I would not like to approve anything until we've all gone through this document in painstaking detail and we've all submitted all our amendments to it over a period of time. We've got time before before it's due to kick in as active, and I don't see why the first authority meeting of the new authority couldn't approve it. Why it has to be done before that stage.
Well, I think the argument behind that was that potentially there could be a significant change in the authority structure. 3 of the 4 authorities will have elections, so there's a very good chance that the constituent bodies will send different people, so we'll be asking a body to have no knowledge potentially, bear in mind what we discussed earlier, of fire, we give the constitution, or at least we have the benefits or otherwise of having had 4 years of experience of lots of different things.
Okay, well, notwithstanding that, I'm not comfortable agreeing it today.
Yeah.
Well, as we've had no other speakers, what are we to do? Are we to move to accept the recommendations as in item 9 of the agenda, or do we want to do something different?
Can I ask a question in the interim while people are thinking? When you mention the word committee, presumably you mean including panels as well?
No, I mean the constituted committees of this authority, which is the employment committee, right? How those committees decide to organise themselves will be part of that process, of course.
Yes, but the existence of panels is taken for granted in some quarters.
Well, it isn't, is it? I mean, it's not.
Well, it is, Chairman, I'm sorry.
Well,
It's mentioned.
it's mentioned, Bob, but there's no set in stone it's got to happen. It's our constitution as an authority, isn't it? And we can do what we want with it, which is practical, as we meet the law.
So it's not a valid worry of mine then to think that on occasions there will be a panel of 3 people of different political persuasions. That's not true then, even though it says that.
In what respect?
Well, any respect.
Well,
It's
It is-
member complaints, there's a section in there that says there will be 3 members.
do you mean the employment committee panel?
Well, perhaps, yes. I mean, it's surely contrary to common sense for the employment committee to recommend a panel of 3 members to make a decision that the committee then passes through and passes on to the authority.
Whereas the disciplinary process is different to that. I think we have confidentiality. We aren't arguing today about the constitution of the committee. We said we're going to do that in the March meeting.
Coming back to failure of members generally to attend meetings of the working group, that is a well-known trap in that any comment can be submitted to a working group, briefly discussed, dismissed, and then it's dismissed all round. It never gets beyond the working group. Whereas if you raise an objection at this sort of meeting, it has a more general validity. So that's a good reason for not actually making a comment. It also applies to consultation in a unitary authority. There's no point in joining the 897 comments, even though we're told you've had the opportunity of commenting. It's better to leave it until the comments come down to 6 or 7. Then you can make your point more
I
strongly.
think Tony Davies might be trying to help us.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, Chair, I have a degree of difficulty. We heard from Sarah, and in fairness, her and her group have done it's an amazing amount of work. It's an awful lot. Recognising that Mark has some legitimate concerns, that's fine. I think, but if we want to change it, we've got to have one to change. And I think we may as well actually have it there. Then we agree that we can change it. I'm a little concerned that what Councillor Garner is saying, we keep going back, discussing the same thing over and over again. Now, there's got to be, if you like, a cut-off at some stage where we say, okay, we've discussed that, we've come to a decision, that's it. Now, it's not going to suit everybody. There are decisions that probably I may not like, but I accept that we are an authority and we have, different opinions. We take a vote, that's it. And we must, that's what, but we really do need to get on with this. I'm perfectly happy to recommend or move that we actually accept this, bearing in mind, and you can put a caveat in that it will be reviewed. And I think Mark's point about perhaps splitting it up into bits is sensible, and I totally agree with that. But we need to actually get on with the job, and if we don't have anything, we can't review it.
So are you proposing we accept the recommendations then, Tony? Do we have a seconder?
Yes.
Councillor Jackson, Cathy Morris is indicating to say something.
Chair, yes, I'd just like to put a counter motion on the table. Sorry, Tony. I understand that this has not gone to the committees or been discussed at committee level, and I would like to see that input from the committee chairs, reviewing this as a document, not as an accepted constitution, to take it forward to the next fire authority meeting where the committees would have had their input through the committee chairs, and then hopefully any amendments be accepted and we can accept it as a final document before we move into the next municipal year.
Chris Jackson?
If it helps, Chair, I mean, you approved the new constitutional framework. We could put something like, so it says within the timescale. So we've got till March this meeting to go backwards and forwards. And I agree with what you say. Let those committees will meet before that March meeting. Let them have the input. Break it up into smaller, more manageable chunks. I don't know if we can just tweak the wording a little bit to agree with what, I don't think anybody's disagreeing with what Margaret Sheila said. So, although I'm happy to move it, it's only a framework, but we need something to work. Like Tony said, we need something a base point to go forward. But I do agree with the chairs of each committee having their input and bringing it back to the March meeting.
Well, can I suggest then that we amend the thing to approve the new draft constitution, and then if this draft constitution, as Cathy has suggested, be sent out to all the various committees, the comment to be brought back to March for final agreement. Is that okay?
So could you just give us the exact word?
No, I can't, because I'm not a lawyer. But what I'm suggesting is in recommendation we call it draft. We have an extra clause on there in which we say it will be submitted to all the committees for consideration and that will be brought back for final approval in the March meeting.
So we're removing the approve.
Yes.
So you're approving the
The
draft
draft.
message, and just to confirm
No,
that
okay, I'm not happy with that because I'm not happy with the draft.
most of the documents are your existing documents, so the code of
Yes,
conduct.
I'm not. I reiterate, I'm not happy with the draft. So I'm happy that we agree to this being continued to be worked on and revised by the committees, but I'm not happy to approve the draft document. I know that sounds very finicky, but what I don't want to happen is suddenly discover that this is a fait accompli down the road, and that the particular items that I brought up for discussion now has not been thrashed out by the committees and by this authority.
Shall we note the draft then?
Okay.
Yes.
So we note the draft constitution. It will go to all the committees, so I ask all the committee chairs to make sure it's on the agenda for their meetings and make sure there's a meeting of their committees in plenty of time before the March meeting of the authority. On that basis, are we happy to approve as suggested?
Thank you,
All
Chair.
clear, so.
So is it going to be summarised and, as you suggested, put into different headings?
Yes, we
and
can do that.
formats?
Yes.
Great.
Neil.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, well, I think we're probably getting there. This was a huge task, as many of us have seen. I think it's good, so there we go. But I don't think any of us thought that we'd be laying down the law and that was going to be it. But we need to get the maximum number of people contributing, and if we can do it by March, then absolutely fine as far as I'm concerned. And let's go on with it.
Okay, so all in favour of that? Okay. Any against? Any abstentions? Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. So we go on to item number 10, the draft service plan. Just about the table. Avon,
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Members, before you is a pack of documents. That pack of documents is a cover report, and attached to that is within the appendices our roadmap. Also, there is a copy of the draft service plan for consideration. There are two business cases, and the two business cases are in relation to the public consultation. We'd like to go out to consultation on both those in a little while. And the last bit is the consultation strategy itself. I'd like to say at this stage that this is a combination of months of work, and I'm sure that members will see the amount of work that's gone into this plan and the development of this plan. And I'd like to place on record my thanks to all of the teams that have been involved in developing this thus far. Before you is a paper for decision as such, and there are some recommendations which the Chairman, I dare say, will revisit in the fullness of time. This essentially is the authorities plan and sets out for the next 3 years from 2019 to 2022 the how we are going to keep people safe within Avon Fire and Rescue Service area, and what's more, how we are going to continue to improve as a service and how we are going to deliver on the improvements and the modernisation agenda for the service itself. As I said, there is a covering paper. I won't go through that in detail, but I will go through the documents and highlight some points along the way. Appendix 1 shows our service plan roadmap. And members will be aware that in September of last year, I laid out a 1-year plan and in terms of dealing with the issues that we had to deal with within that very first year, and in terms of my interim appointment as Chief Officer. And that involved dealing with investigations that we had to instigate and undergo, the preparations for HMICFRS Inspectorate, also the improvement journey and dealing with the recommendations and the Fire Authority's action plan with regards to the improvement agenda and the improvement plan. And that roadmap laid that out. But what it did do is have a focal point of April the 1st, 2019, which is where we put those improvement things in place. But what we do also is we revisit and refresh our integrated risk management plan. And members will be aware that we brought that forward by a year. That was as a result of a recommendation from the Minister and the Home Office. But also for me, I would have wanted to have done that anyway, because I think that's important. What's really important here is that we fully understand the risk that our communities face on a daily basis. And that is the who, what, when, where, how and why is somebody at risk. And then therefore, what are we going to do about that under the headings of preventing, protecting, responding, maintaining our resilience, but also within that, 2 areas in relation to making our service better, and we'll cover those in a minute. They come under 2 key priorities. The 2 key priorities are making our community safer and making our service stronger. And under the making our community safer, how will we do that? Through prevention, preventing, protecting, responding and resilience. And how will we make our service stronger? And we'll do that through investing in our staff and improving our service, our improvement plan. So that was the roadmap, and that was looking forward to actually, we move forwards to publishing our service plan on the 1st of April 2019, which lays out 3 years moving forwards from 2019 through to 2022. Appendix 2 is the draft plan itself. There are a number of sections within there. What it does do is restates our vision, mission and values, and they will be key to us moving forward, particularly our values, and particularly in relation to our improvement journey and our cultural journey. Our values will be critical for us. It looks at our service and it looks at the risks that we face is from a national perspective, from a regional perspective, from the local resilience forum viewpoint, but also the local context of risk about, as I say, our communities, who, what, when, where, how and why is somebody at risk, and but also corporate risk as well. Okay, so it focuses on those areas. On page 11 there, it sets out our risk methodology, what we have done, how we have gone about that process. We've done that by conducting a strategic assessment. We've done that by setting out an operational baseline assessment, i.e. a risk review, answering those 6 questions, but also in conducting an enhanced baseline report as well. And we've also developed an operational risk register about how we will respond to those areas. And we've done risk modelling, and the model there on page 85 of your pack, or page 11 of the plan, lays that out for you. What we have included in here is our achievements, what we've achieved since 2016, and I think there's some key areas there, and I think it's worthy of note. What we've also got in here is our performance and our performance figures in terms of the graphical pictorial representation of those, and that's on a couple of those pages. And then on page 94 of your bundle, or page 20 of the draft plan, what we do there is we lay out the 2 key priorities, as I said, around safer and stronger. Under those priorities, the 6 areas for us moving forwards, they're colour-coded, and then we move into the individual objectives that we are going to deliver. And within each of those objectives, and members will see that there are pages of those, there are lots of those corporate objectives. What we have stated within there, what will we do, why are we doing it, how will we do it, and when will we do it. So it's the what and why, how and when. Couldn't be much simpler. And hopefully members will see that what we have done is we've done it in plain English, and we said this is what we're going to do, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and when we're doing it. Okay? 2 key highlights within there. I don't want to go to that through too much detail. What we have done is on page 116 is collaborative working, and what we are going to do collaboratively over the next 3 years, and that will link directly to our collaboration strategy. Okay? And also within there, at the back end of it, is how we will undergo corporate assurance and corporate and governance arrangements as well, and that's laid out. It also details the budget moving forward, and of course once the budget becomes clear, we'll be able to crystallise what that says but certainly for 2019-20. If I revisit our organisational objectives, there are 2 areas that I'd like to point out to members of significant highlight, and they are 2 areas that we're going to go out for public consultation on. One of those is around our response standards, and the other one is around our responding to automatic fire alarms. And we will do both of those. We'll go out for consultation, and the plan will be to receive that consultation feedback and for us to implement those within year 1 according to that feedback. Members would have been involved in the developing of these corporate objectives, as would rep bodies. Rep bodies were invited as well. We have had 3 workshops that members will have been involved in, and our thanks for helping us shape what the direction and the position that we're in now. If I move to the 2 areas that we're going to go out for consultation on, there are 2 business cases in here. They're fairly significant in terms of, I suppose, the robustness of them, in terms of why we're doing this, the rationale behind it, the proposal for change, a comparison to what we currently do, and then some science behind why we're doing this, and then what the proposal is, and then obviously the way that we will go out for consultation. I won't go into too much detail, but if I could briefly go over those 2 areas for consultation. With regards to response standards, the response standards that we've had for some considerable time now are based around 3 different categories that we will respond to, and within a certain time and within a certain percentage. And they are actually based around population density. And as a result of that population density, they're based around geography. And I think what's incumbent upon us within our integrated risk management plan is that we are actively identifying and understanding risk, but what's more, we are responding to risk in the right way, with the right resources, and we match resources to that risk. By having response standards which are geography based, I don't think that fully answers the question of risk, and I don't believe that we are responding in the right way. It's my own personal view. The proposal is to move to a set of response standards which are based around risk and risk category. And the proposal is to have 3 categories of incident type, and they are critical incidents. A critical incident is an incident whereby a life is at risk, not just from fire, but any other type of incident where a life is at risk, and what our primary role is, which is primary fires or fires within property. Okay, so that would be a critical incident. Our plan will be to aim to get to that incident within 8 minutes on average. Okay, wherever you are in our service area. That's what the response standard says. The second category of call or incident type is a non-critical incident, and that's whereby there is no threat to life, but it is still an emergency call, but we will respond to that on average within 12 minutes. And the type of incident there, so it's not a primary fire, i.e. it's not a fire in property, so it may be a secondary fire, i.e. a grass fire or a rubbish fire, or an automatic fire alarm, or there is no threat to life. So we will respond to that. The proposal is that we'll respond to that on average within 12 minutes wherever you are in our service area. The third category of call is where we would normally just provide advice, and they are non-emergency incidents, and it could be where we are providing assistance, or where we are providing advice or guidance, or follow-up fire safety visit, and we would aim to attend those incidents within 60 minutes on average. Okay, so that's the proposal. It's as I say, there is a business case within the draft plan, and I think that's all I probably wanted to say around the response standards. With regards to automatic fire alarms, again there is a business case here for automatic fire alarms. Moving to thank you. Just moving to page 160 within your bundle. With regards to automatic fire alarms, again a business case for change. At the moment, we respond to all automatic fire alarms, irrespective of the building type, irrespective of the risk category of that building, and we send a weight of attack that we would send to a fire, and 98% of those calls are actually false alarms. And if you think about what I said about matching resources to risk and responding to risk in the right way, it's more incumbent, I would suggest, on us as a service and as an authority to better match resources to risk by responding differently to automatic fire alarms. And the proposal here, at the moment what we do, as I said, we respond to all properties, irrespective of type, at any time of the day, with a weight of attack that we would normally have as a fire. The proposal is to move to a scenario whereby we will always respond to the highest risk premises. We will always respond to a sleeping risk premises, i.e. somebody could be sleeping there, and that includes of course private dwellings or hotels, hospitals, etc., care homes and the likes. The proposal is that we will always respond to those premises, but we will not respond to premises where there is very little risk or the risk is low. And we're also proposing that our response will be using one fire engine, but we will always call challenge as well. Okay, so we will reduce the number of calls we try to respond to. Now there are benefits to this. There is a reduced road risk. There is actually, I think there's a reduced corporate risk as a result of that. It will also reduce the number of mobilisations that we have, and actually I think that will give us back some time and capacity in order to enable our firefighters on our stations to do more community safety work and to do more training. Okay, and that really is it. That is the proposal. Both of those are laid out within a business case within your bundle, and you can see for yourself the amount of time that will come back to us as a service in relation to 31% total reduction. There are 4 options in your paper. One is we maintain our current response standard. The second option is that we attend only sleeping risk and high-risk premises only. The third option is that we attend sleeping risk only. And the fourth option is that we don't go to any automatic fire alarms at all. So there is a sliding scale there. Some services have said we will not respond to any automatic fire alarms. The services have said that we don't own that risk. A responsible person owns that risk. So we won't go. Dial 999 if you have a fire. We're not proposing that. We are proposing a risk-based approach according to the risk within the premises or the perceived risk within the premises by the premises type. And if we do that, the recommendation within here is that the preferred option is option 2, which is we will respond to sleeping risk and high risk premises only. All other premises will not get a response from an automatic fire alarm. That will reduce our calls by 31% or thereabouts, and it will also, option B, it could be up to 67%, but it also gives you back a lot of deployment man hours from a service perspective as well, which again, the troops can be used for training and for keeping our communities safe through technical fire safety and fire safety work. I think that's all I wanted to say about that, members. The next document within your pack is our consultation strategy, the proposals to go out to the public with those areas of consultation. We are interested in the public's view on our service plan, our draft service plan, so we'd like feedback on that, but also the 2 areas that we're going to go out for consultation on with the 2 business cases. I commend the plan to the authority and happy to take any feedback from members before we go out for consultation. But of course we will respond to that consultation in the right way. These will be backed up with a really good communication plan and strategy. We will provide or do some animations in relation to the 2 areas we're going to go out for consultation. I think that will help simplify the presentation of this and to simplify the messaging of this. We'll receive the consultation back and the plan will come back to the authority in March in readiness for publication in April. Final sign off by the authority in March for publication on the 1st of April. I'll pause at that point.
Well, first of all, I'm sure we have to thank the officers of the service who have put an awful lot of time and effort into this piece of work. It hasn't been easy at all. You've been updated regularly on the progress. It's been a massive piece of work. And I think the HMICFRS inspection comment yesterday and today very, very timely. So thank you all. Members have indicated, Chris Jackson is the first to speak.
Yeah, thanks for everybody who's put a lot of work into this. I've gone through this a few times. It's easier to read than in the past, but I've got a few issues. On the draft service plan, I don't know what page it is on yours, but it's page 44. It says at the top there, austerity. It says we have saved 14.5 million. I think that's a little bit. We've had our budget reduced, and I think it's just say we saved it. It sounds like we wasted it in the past. We haven't. I think that should be, we've had our budget reduced over that period of time.
Sure.
So just like that amended. Okay. I'll do the AFA one first. You said that this is going out, obviously this is a consultation.
Yes.
I would like something in there, because you're reducing the weight of attack to reduce, to give us more hours for staff for training and for, there's nothing in there to say what that capacity would be the extra capacity for us to do work at for a safety visit or training. I couldn't see how many hours that would give us back.
We have got, it is in the...
It is, I couldn't find it.
Page 178.
Yeah, what's that in this small?
Page 19 and 26.
So it's got the four options.
Yeah.
It says if we maintain the current rate of attack, the deployments and what we would save, and option B in terms of reduce the current rate of attack to one fire engine, what that will provide you in terms of deployments and hours.
Page 176.
176 within the table, and then if I can show you page 178, 5.5, 1,454 less calls, free up approximately 1,833 fire engine hours, translated into personnel hours of 7,332.
I think it might be page 17 on your book.
That's the one I'm looking at. Yeah,
Sorry, it's your bump, sorry, you've got a separate
Yeah,
document,
got a
sorry.
separate one, yeah. Okay, right. I think that if, like I said, I found that difficult to find myself, and I think that needs to be for people to consult on. I think that needs to be made a little bit more aware.
Okay.
So for that, and the response standards, as you know, I've been to some of it. I am totally against average times because it can hide so much inefficiency is what I'm concerned with. So if you say you've got average time of 8 minutes, you may, when it all comes out, there might have been 4 or 5 of those, but it was 45 minutes, but we've had a lot, well, we got a bit, I'm against that. Also, we've watered down our response standards over the years tremendously by not timing the arrival of the second appliance for emergency, what we call critical. You can get the first appliance there within 8 minutes as you want to do, but that don't mean to say that you can do anything. You need, if we're going to do average times, I want the second appliance because we've taken that away. And I know for a fact we do get the first appliance because we've had the figures in here, life-saving appliance. But if there's only 4 people on that, they can't even make an entry into an house fire. So if you're going to start watering it down even more with average times, I'd like some more assurance, especially for the staff who are in that position when they get there, one pump and they can't do anything.
Sure.
Putting them at risk, because believe you me, although we shouldn't be making an entrance with 4 firefighters on that first appliance, they do.
Yeah.
Believe you me, they do, and they're putting themselves at risk. So if you're going to change all these response standards, and I think the public should know it should be made a bit more simpler, that what average means and why we're only doing 1 pump, not 2, because it says here about it. So I'm really concerned that that's going to put the safety, it says the way you change it from A, B and C to the critical, or not so critical, and we get there if ever we bother. I don't think the public would actually understand what that means. Because I spoke to firefighting members all around, and they weren't aware of the second pump not being timed. They weren't aware of what an average means. Because I know, speaking to other firefighters in the country, they've gone to average, and it's been awful. Now, I do trust our staff, our senior managers, to keep an eye on it. But when it goes out to consultation, it looks ever so easy just for the, oh, well, that sounds like a good idea, without actually understanding it.
Sure.
So I want it noted that I want the second pump timed, not the first pump. So if you're going to use averages, which it looks like you're going, I mean, if I read this, or members of the public, they'd go for that. I want the second pump timed, not the first pump.
Sure. If I can respond to a couple of areas, Councillor. The HMICFRS is looking like they are moving towards average times.
There's no national standard, so they can move whichever way they want.
Appreciate
for
that.
us to be.
Yeah, I appreciate that. If you look at page 17 of the draft service plan, about halfway down, we are actually measuring full resources mobilised to a fire in a building. So we are measuring that. It is not stated within our response standards. I would absolutely agree with that. But we do measure, we do have a target of 95% and the actual is 100%. So this is our current performance. So we are measuring it. It's not stated within our response standards. But I do take on board your comments, and we have had a previous conversation about it, so I'm fully aware of your views. And absolutely, we can feed that in as part of the consultation. I think that the other thing for me is that the average response of across the service, across the UK, I think more and more services are using average.
They may work. When we had National Fire Standards a couple of years ago, everybody worked on the same sheet. Now each authority is changing, and I know I've chatted to somebody from Devon and Somerset, a fire authority member, and they said that their standards are awful. You know, the standards of fire cover, what they do, but they've made that decision. What I don't want us to do is just because everybody else is doing it, doesn't make it right for us to do. We should be trying to, well, I don't know, maybe we can set some standards that could be put forward to the working group for national standards. But I don't want it watered down. It's been watered down once already by removing the second pump as a main target of the life saving. If you're going to go average, at least give them a chance and say that we're going to use the second pump as the average. So, but I ain't really happy with it, as we've spoken.
Yeah, of course. And we already measure the second truck, as I said, but it's not stated within the current response standards, and I'd be happy to look at that.
Chris, would you be happier, as I would be indeed, if we were measuring the average and then standard deviation from that mean? Because that's the point, isn't it? The point you're making is people turn up in a minute and the next one takes half an hour to get there. On average, we're still beating the number, aren't we?
Yeah.
So we need to have some measure of the deviation from the mean of the arrival time. That is precisely, I think, what Chris is.
That's the issue. It can hide some awful statistics.
So we do need to look at that. So I think it would be useful, not necessarily for today, but have some statistical analysis of those arrival times, where we deem the deviances from that mean to be acceptable in terms of fire safety. Next person's deal buttons.
Thank you, Chair. I was rather alarmed to see the photograph on page 89.
Well, that's not one of me, is it? That would be alarming for anybody.
Sorry?
It's not one of me, that would be alarming for anybody.
We had a perfect opportunity to show that we were looking to more cultural diversity and more female partners. And we seem to have here a photograph which is entirely male, I think white male.
Thank you, Councillor. It's very good feedback, and we'll change that photograph before it goes up.
Thank you. As regards the sleeping, the automatic fire alarms, some of you know I ran a monthly training centre, residential, some 25 years ago now, and so I think it is essential to retain that residential element in looking at AFAs. But I'm horrified really that technology or whatever hasn't advanced to the extent that many of these false alarms can be weeded out. I mean, what on earth is going on that there should be so many wrong side failures?
Technology does exist, and there are more modern fire alarms. If you were to buy one now, it is very much more technologically advanced than one that was fitted even 10 years ago. Unfortunately, we have a building stock which has old systems, and as a result, they're not providing us with that technological advance.
Can there not be some incentive or disincentive, if we look at it, to get people to do better? Where we were in Hertfordshire, we were allowed then up to 8 false alarms in a year. I mean, I would have desperately like to heavily reduce that, obviously, from a practical point of view. Can we not, do you impose any sort of limit like that? Have you tried that as an interim measure? What else can be done in terms of potentially levying some kind of escalating fine, for example, if they go over, say, 5 a year or whatever?
Yes, there are. Rob's going to answer that.
Absolutely, Councillor. We have as trends of where we get commercial properties or non-residential, residential that have alarms. If we go over 6 of those alarms, we get trends that moves up our technical fire safety team, we write to them and then we make a visit. Because normally it's not something as simple as we actually replace a smoke detector with a heat detector, because the smoke detector is just picking up the products on toast or steam or whatever, and the technical fire safety officer is able to work with the responsible person of the building, because it's their responsibility, but to say actually we can cut those alarms down and actually move in detectors as an example. Nationally, we're working with the Fire Industries Association as well, and there's a model agreement around doing that exactly what you said there, Councillor, around coaching those buildings to comply, that we don't get false alarms for false alarm reasons. So some of those sort of structural managerial changes within the buildings themselves.
So should some of that be built into what we're about to decide? Because it's a bit black and white at the moment.
Absolutely. So whenever we're trying to manage the alarms down as best as possible, and with the technology that we've now got in buildings, we know that they're hypersensitive. So the technical fire safety team, it's already built into our unwanted fire signals policy that the technical fire safety team will continue to do that work, where if we get repeat offenders, we send letters and make the visits to make sure that we can actually use the engineering to cut those alarms down. So that's happening now, been happening in the past and continues, even with a potentially new policy going forwards.
Thank you. First of all, to the Chief Fire Officer, thank you for keeping me safe for 10 few days. That's excellent value for money. I think we should all recognise it. Secondly, through the Chief Fire Officer, I'd like to ask Amber, what channels are you going to use to disseminate consultation?
So there'll be a multitude of channels, both online and offline. It will be on the website, it will be through SurveyMonkey, which enables us to collate anonymous survey results. We'll have hard copy formats. We've already established lines of communication that we can make it available in other languages if necessary. And we'll be going out and about face to face, speaking to people in public venues, as well as holding an evening public forum across different days, different locations, going to where the people need us, where we know there's going to be a high footfall across the patch, as well as doing various events internally as well with staff.
So you will look at events like community engagement forums?
Yeah. Yeah.
The consultation strategy and communications plan is
Yes, thank you. I'm amazed at the suggestion that we should introduce the term standard deviation. Many members of the public don't understand what average means to start off with. But this leads to the question whether, however we measure response time, whether it's the first appliance, the second appliance, the average or the mean or the weighted mean or whatever, does it make any difference to the speed of our response? Are we not attempting to get there as soon as we can, for example? I think not. I think we do our very, very best, regardless of how it's measured, presented, talked about, defined, etc.
Mark Sheldon.
I was about to get off on one on standard deviation, but I thought perhaps I've done it better not to. If I can start by first of all apologising to Sarah and Neil. I should have thanked you right at the beginning for your excellent work on the Constitution, and I know how much hard work that was. It's bloody hard enough reading it, let alone putting it together. So both of you and that whole gang, well done. Equally, to the fire chief and all your team for putting this together. It's a very good piece of work, and another joy to read, but it didn't send me to sleep. I do have a question on those response times, and I'm really glad that you put some metrics in there, and also some detail of other organisations that have come up with those response times. But I do just question why 8 and not 10? If 10 minutes is the difference between a fairly static level of casualties and then it goes significantly up, why are we not doing 10, but 10 with the right level of attack? So it's not about the first vehicle, or the second, or the third. It's about the right level for whatever the incident is. So if it's a car on a motorway, it might actually just be a red van cutting kit that arrives to get the people out of the van, and that's one vehicle for the incident. It could be Hinkley Point B, oh my lord, I hope it isn't, and it's the entire southwest needs to be there to deal with it. So, is it for ease of measuring that we talk about one vehicle? So 2 questions there. One is, why is it 8 not 10? The second thing is, why, as Councillor Jackson says, and I completely agree with him, it's not about that first vehicle, it's about the correct level of attack arriving at the right time. Now, do we, for simplicity, talk about one vehicle because it's just too very difficult to do anything other than that? In which case, fair dues. But, or is it that we actually should be rather more sophisticated and talk about the right level of attack arriving at the right time? It's a really good question.
I think Rob will answer the question. There is some science behind this.
Yep.
I'm sure you'll be pleased to see.
I've read it, yep.
Yeah, and I think Rob will be able to assist with that. I think simplicity is the answer, because I think this is the authority's contract with the taxpaying public about what to expect when something happens. And the reality of it is, the simple message is, for a critical incident where a life is at risk, or there is a property fire, we are interested in ambulance. That's the simple approach, that's the simple message. In terms of simplifying that message, when we go out for consultation, which will answer some other questions, is the animation to talk you through that story about why we're doing it and the rationale behind it. Rob will cover the answer in terms of the
Councillor, there's been some work done by DCLG, as was, now it changed its name, back in 2013, but also there's been some work being done with pharmacy services around the country, certainly PhD students. And it seems that there's a lot of variables in this. So within the origin of the fire, the room of origin, depending on the fire load and condition of the casualty before and during and after the fire. So if a person's got some frail conditions already, their survivability comes down quite considerably. But on average, with the academic studies and with the CLG studies, when we get to 10 minutes, the survivability in that room is basically 0. So the 8 minutes allows you that point to alert to mobilisation in 10 minutes to achieve that first 30 seconds to a minute of firefighting and rescue keeps us under 10 minutes, because when we get to 10 minutes, the statistics on page 136 in my pack, which is 14 of 37, shows that at 10 minutes we get an exponential rise in people in unsurvivable void.
It's to enable us to intervene.
So is 2 minutes on scene enough? So we're saying get there, but for 8, we just heard very eloquently from Councillor Jackson that, you know, one fire engine on its own, you can't get people into the room. So should we actually be doing something different?
We've got operational practices that allow, again, every fire is slightly different, but we've got operational practices. We can externally start reducing the impact of that fire with firefighting jets from outside. And actually, that's one of the safest ways of actually tactically approaching that fire, because we can reduce the conditions in the building. So our firefighters, when they go in, it's a safer condition. We've actually got a rapid deployment policy as well. So if it's a person reported, a person trapped in a fire, with 4 firefighters, we can still deploy into that property to effect rescue. So we use that first 2 minutes to provide that initial firefighting and search and rescue.
Okay.
Tony Davis?
Just a quick one from me. I was very pleased to hear we're actually going out to various forums and called lots of different things in the different areas. I wasn't sure the pleasure of seeing the fire at the end of my road. Actually, no one was in great danger, but Bucky was sleeping in his house and it was burning at the side of it. But still, fire engine turned, and as you can imagine, all the neighbours came out. Of course, it's quite good entertainment, watching the fire. And they watched until, and of course, then the second engine turned. And they were at their boards and things like that. The average person had no idea whether it's one fire engine or two. If it's two, and this is not me criticising the standard, but if you're going out to consultation, you need to actually explain some of the reasons why you do certain things in certain ways. Because they all look, well, they started, And to them, it was a fair question. When the second engine arrived and they did things, I hasten to add, I think the first engine was actually doing things that we weren't going to have. But I hope we're going to actually explain some of the things we're doing, because otherwise consultations, we've all seen them, and you think, really? What are we talking about there? And, we're supposed to know what we're doing. So,
thank you, Councillor. Thank you for your feedback. It's a real shame that we didn't have the animations ready in time for today, because I think that would have helped significantly. The plan is to have 2 animations, one for each of the consultation elements, and they will talk the viewer through the rationale, etc., and simplify it as much as possible, get across all of the points. That's the aim. I'm looking at Amber, and Amber's looking both horrified and nodding. That's the aim. Yes, that will assist, I think, in terms of getting that message out there, but also simplifying the story.
Thank you. So, we're asked on page 67 to make 2 votes for the approve the draft service plan, the public consultation, and approve the consultation strategy for service plan.
Is that to include some of the comments we've made?
Yes, we'll include those as part of the consultation with Council.
I'm happy to agree there.
Proposer?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Chris Jones, seconder. Mark Shelford. Okay, we all in favour of that? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Move on to the draft budget. Are you going to Kevin or Lynn?
Thank you, Chair, for that. We're now looking at the draft budget, which is on page on your pack. Item number 11, I believe, number 10. It pains me to start my first presentation to I really do apologise.
Excuse me, I can't really hear you up this end.
Sorry, okay. Apologies that this paper wasn't with the main pack. It's not the way I would normally want to operate. But I think you understand we've been working under challenging circumstances this year. Obviously, with Martin, the Treasurer, being off sick in September, and what is such a crucial time of the year, it's been a bit of a challenge to get this paper to you. I only started, well, this is my 4th week with you, so I've only had a limited number of days to have some input into the report. And I'm grateful to Lynn and the team in terms of doing the work to getting the paper with you today. I know Lynn was, I've been there a few weeks, but I've obviously fresh pair of eyes into the budget. I've been asking all sorts of questions about where things come from and what sort of direction we're heading. And Lynn is probably thinking I'm asking these questions at a time she's busily trying to get the report together. But hopefully she's found them constructive and that it's added to the paper today. So again, just to re-emphasise, that's not the way I would normally want to operate in terms of having a paper, but hopefully you've had time to read it and we can spend some time on it now to make sure that we're reasonably comfortable in where we are and where we want to take it. In terms of the purpose of the report, it follows the convention from last year. So at this time of the year before Christmas, and we're bringing a paper to the authority, which is a draft budget, recognising that the actual budget and council tax will not be set until February. So we have a bit of time to do some more work on it. But the purpose of the report is to have a first discussion with yourselves and members of the authority. But from this today, I want to be in a position to have a paper agreed that we can use to consult with the public and with the business community at the very least in terms of fulfilling our legal obligation to consult on our precepts in the next year. So we want to get this out before Christmas so that we've got the responses from that consultation in place for when we come to the authority in February. So in terms of the report itself, I'm conscious that there's lots of tables and numbers in the report, and if I may, I don't intend to go through every table and every paragraph. I want to hopefully bring out the main chunks from the report that would be relevant today. So I'm not deliberately trying to ignore certain tables, so happy to take questions at the end. So in terms of the report itself, if I can start with 1.2 at the front there. This report is including two options in terms of council tax increase. So the first one is option 1, which is for a 2.99% increase, which would be from £71.35 for the Band B property to £73.48. So just to say, it's at 2.99%. You may be aware that the referendum limit is 3%. The 2.99% is just to be doubly sure that we don't trigger over the 3%. And believe me, the formula that is used can possibly do that. So Treasury will tell you we'll go for 2.99%. It's not the 99p syndrome, it's actually to make sure that we don't trigger an increase of more than 3%, which would be horrendous because we'd be into referendums and all that includes. So 2.99% is option 1. I've also included an option 2, which is for 1.99%, which actually could be 2% because it could still be over 3%. I'm mindful that that's the two options I've put in this paper in the short space of time that I've been with the organisation, but I'm conscious that ultimately it's for the authority to decide on what is the appropriate level for next year. And of course I'm struggling to get to the numbers of the authority. I've not had time to get through some of the other dynamics of the authority. So it may be that members wish other options to be included in the paper. 2.5% might be an option. I wouldn't necessarily suggest it. It would make things complicated in terms of the paper, but it's very doable if members had minded to go not with the 3%, but something between 2 and 3. So that's one consideration that members might have. Just in terms of difference between 2% and 3%, a 1% increase represents a 71 pence addition to the council tax. More importantly, well, no, not more importantly, because council taxpayers are important. For us, that's equivalent to 262,000. So that's probably the one number you need to think about is if we went from 3% then to 2%, we would lose 262,000 from our base. Just continuing to walk through the report, so if I can go to 3.6, which is on page 3 of our supplementary papers. I know members will be aware that 2019-20 next year is year 4 of our 4-year plan. So back in 2016, I was in Devon and Somerset then, and we said yes please. A 4-year settlement is extremely helpful, and Treasurer was definitely telling me that. To have a 4-year settlement enables us to sit down and actually seriously look at a 4-year outlook, which is really helpful in terms of the organisation. So this is year 4 of that 4-year plan. So if you think of it in those terms, the next year we're pretty much in line with where we expected because we've had time to get ourselves into that position. So for 1920, we've now had the settlement, the provisional local government settlement came out 13th of December last week. And so for an Avon Fire Authority, we now know that our settlement figure, this confirmation, is 15.766 million, which is in line with what we had in our 4-year plan. So there's no excitement there in terms of Avon's settlement for next year. That represents a 396,000 reduction in our settlement figure, which is a 2.4% reduction. One thing I failed to say at the beginning of the report is, my style is I'm not recommending a certain option to you today. Obviously that's for members to decide, but it'll probably be quite clear by the end of my presentation where I'm at. And this leads me to my next bit, which is 1920 is very, very much in line with our expectations. The 2020-21 beyond, and looking at the next 3 years of our 4-year plan, there are a number of uncertainties in there, some of which I know you'll be well aware of, each of which could have an impact on our budget and our council tax levels. And within the report, you will see there's a number of sensitivity analysis, risk analysis about where some of those risks might lie. But some of the ones you would expect me to say. Firstly, in terms of Brexit, I couldn't even attempt to evaluate what that means for Avon Fire and Rescue Authority in that period of time. I don't think anybody could, but some things spring to mind where it might impact, certainly around interest rates and those sorts of things. So, those are things that we can obviously build into our plan as and when better information comes around about what that means for us as an authority. In terms of settlements for 2021 onwards, and those 3 years, and that's very much sort of crystal ball gazing. And I've assumed in here that our grant levels will remain static for those 3 years, i.e. at the same levels as 2019-20. Other fire rescue authorities will be doing something different. I know of some that are putting in significant reductions. If I was to be honest, probably remaining static is probably on the optimistic side, if I'm to be honest, because if we think about the spending review that will take place next year in 2019, which will the government spending review, which we know will inform spending targets for 2021 and beyond. We already know that there are some departments that are protected, namely the NHS and probably adult social care in that area. So there's nothing to suggest that fire will be protected. So if there are some protected departments, that says to me that probably some of the other departments might have to suffer some sort of reduction. But that's speculation at this point. But the reality is we will not know the numbers until 12 months' time when the settlement figures come out with the settlement 2019. So up until that time, unfortunately, we've not got a 4-year settlement. We are working almost blindly. But obviously we have to take a view in terms of this payback. Moving to 3.13 in the paper. This is around the council tax referendum limits. I've already mentioned that the limit for next year has been announced at 3%, which is good news in terms of it's better than the 2% that we have in the 4-year plans, which is why we've got this option for 3% in the paper. And the settlement last week confirmed that 3% is applicable to fire and rescue authorities. Disappointingly, there's nothing else in there in terms of any more flexibilities, and by flexibilities I mean I know that the police, for instance, have been given the flexibility to increase their council tax by a cash amount of £24. And last year they had that flexibility for £12. So for Avon and police, I know that whilst last year they were able to increase their council tax by £12, which I think was 7%. This year they're able to go to £24. So if they did take that flexibility, then Avon and Somerset Police could go for a 12% increase to balance their books. So that's helpful to them in terms of giving that flexibility. Obviously they will be accountable to the taxpayers because that's a significant increase from what they would have been used to. Well, £24 is £2 a month, and this isn't simple maths, so that's a lot in terms of an increase. But for us, we don't have that flexibility, so in terms of setting a council tax, it probably makes things a bit easier because we can't go below 3. Well, the limit is £3. I'm assuming that this authority has no appetite to look beyond anything beyond 3% and go for any referendum. It's not something that I would recommend in terms of what I've seen of the finances. We'd have to be in a pretty dire state to actually go there. Firstly, there's a cost to the taxpayer actually holding a referendum. And in some ways you can get turkeys loaded for Christmas because you probably know where the answer might be. If I can go now to the draft budget, which is on section 3.23. This is the hard work that Lynn and the team have put in terms of developing a draft budget for 2019-20, now that we know what our funding levels are going to be. And our first stab at this is that based on building a base budget for next year and building in inflationary increases and any commitments, then there is a need to identify savings of 880,000. We've identified £500,000 of those savings, so there's still some work to do between now and February to identify further £356,000 worth of savings. Just to emphasise, this is based on a 3% increase, so if members did go for 2%, that would increase that number from 356,000 to 618,000. So based on this draft budget, certainly we've got some work to do with the chief and the team to bring this down to a balanced budget by February. Just to, at this point, bring in some of the assumptions that we built into 2019-20. Firstly, around pay awards. For this paper, we assumed that, well, we built in a 2% pay award for support staff, because I believe that has been agreed, and that's from April 2019. In terms of a firefighter's pay award from July 2019, we've assumed in this paper 3%, others might put in 2% or something different. That's where we put at the moment. That's not to say that's where we'll end up. Obviously that's subject to national negotiations, etc. This is just what we think we might need to provide in our budget. Obviously any deviation from that would have to be picked up from reserve, so that's another risk area for us. The other issue I just wanted to highlight in there, it's not actually identified in this table, but in commitments, we've got an additional cost of £846,000. Some of that relates to property, some of it relates to staffing costs. But there's also an issue in there around pensions, and this is something that has always been an area of concern, certainly not here but at UK level as well. The public sector pensions, for those of us that are around in 2014-15, the pension schemes both for local government and for firefighters were completely new schemes were introduced, which was very much around the austerity measures that the government were pursuing at the time. So I think the target was to achieve £12 billion worth of welfare savings, and part of that was the rehab in the pension schemes. So a lot of challenge around the pension schemes in 2014-15. Obviously those individuals in pension schemes were very concerned about their pension costs being raided, and obviously there was an element of that. But the new schemes that are coming to firefighters those that are longer serving will be the 1992 scheme and 2008 scheme. But anyway, in terms of those pension schemes were rehoused in 2015. 2016 there was a government actuarial department review of the scheme. So I was still around at that time. We knew there was some bad news coming, and it's now hit us this time. So for the firefighter scheme, we are told that the employer's rates, which is the rates that we pay into the scheme, at the moment they average 17%. They will increase to an average of 30%, so it's a huge hike. So this is all about making the schemes more affordable in the future. I think I've got it in the paper somewhere, but for the fire sector that means £107 million per annum. And for Avon Fire, that means another 2.2 million costs for 1920. Now, I've also highlighted in the paper that the government, the Treasury, have announced that they will fund 90% of that cost. So it leaves us with a cost next year of 220,000. So just to emphasise that we've built in that additional 220,000 into 1920, but that grant has only been announced as a one-year grant, so that tells me that they're still undecided about what that means. And the best they can tell us is that it will be rolled into the spending review next year, so that almost putting the decision off. So there is a risk to the authority that we will get left with that £2.2 million. So we have built that in at this point in time. I've built that into 2020-21, because I think we need to recognise that there is that risk. I know that the fire sector will not take that line down, because that is a huge hit to the fire sector's budget at a time when it's already suffered this extremely challenging time. So there will be a big discussion, I'm sure, about the impact that would have to fire services and the impact it might have on frontline services. So we built it into the plan because it would be difficult not to, and just ignore it, but just to recognise that we really hope that that's not the case, and that we actually have some and discussion with the Home Office about what that might mean for us. But I'm just going back to the last time that the Treasury changed the pension schemes. It was all about savings, so the Treasury wanted to take those savings. So the fact that they've actually given us 90% of it this time is not. It's surprising, but I guess at this late stage it would be horrendous to load that onto us at this stage when we weren't planning for it in next year. So that's a big issue in this paper that we've included. It's not just affecting fire, it's affecting public sector pensions across the piece. Just moving through the report, on section 3.28 and page 9, and we have a table there about our savings, potential forecast savings for the next 4 years. So 1920, I mentioned that we think our savings target is 885,000. We've still got some work to do to identify 356,000. Looking into 2020, 21 and beyond, we've identified that potentially another 2.5 million in total savings, most of which relates to that issue that I've just identified. So we think there is a funding gap. So going back to what I said, I'm not making any recommendation in this paper, but there is an opportunity, I would suggest, to take the 3% and build that into base because of the uncertainties over the future. I mentioned risks around Brexit and the settlement and pay awards, and now I've mentioned pensions. The other one I would just highlight here, and I know it, I'm sure you'll be aware of the changes going on in the local government finance world, which is around what's called the business rates retention system. So it used to be the case that most of our grant funding came in a block grant from the government, and it came and thank you very much, we'll move on. Now it's moved to a system where we get some of it from the local business taxpayers. So that does build into it some volatility. So the government will tell us what they think we're going to get, but what we actually get on the ground might be something different because it is based on collecting those levels of business rates. And if big industries move out of the area, then that can have a serious impact on business rates. So it builds in other risks into the finance system, which we as treasurers don't like, but we're having to live with. The news is that the 50% business rate retention system, the idea is to move to 100% business rate retention system. And I'm not even trying to attempt to explain the nuts and bolts of it because I could bore you with all sorts of issues around safety nets and top-ups and tariffs, but just to say to you that the idea is that for those authorities that would lose out by moving to 100% business rate, the government will offer you a protection. So the idea is that those areas that are not as buoyant in terms of business rates, if we're going to lose out through the system, the government will come in with a handout to top you up, which is absolutely fine, but the critical question will be as to how long that protection will last. If it's forever, fantastic. But if there's some tapering involved that we lose it at some point, that could have some impact because, as you know, well, if you don't know, in terms of how it works, the fire service only get 2% of business rates that's collected, so we're a very small player at the table of that. So our 2% that we get is a lot less than we get at the moment through government grants. So that we would definitely be in the top-up arrangement, the protection arrangement. And we'd be very interested to discuss with the government how that would work for us, because there is a risk of that. If it is taken out, that could leave us with a large hole. As I mentioned, there's other tables in there mainly around risks and just to mention reserves as well. Obviously reserves are very important, particularly at a time of volatility. The authority has used reserves over the past years, and I know the comment was made earlier about the levels of savings, and obviously clearly this authority has responded to the grant settlement reductions and been forced to make savings to balance budgets, so they have responded well, and no doubt we'll have to do that, more of that in the future. But to rely on reserves would not be a good strategy, particularly as your reserves they have been used and they have been going downwards. So I would suggest that if anything we should be looking to build reserves rather than using them. But obviously they are there for a reason, and we have to get that discussion, we have that discussion. So in summary, Chair, what I've tried to do is just give as much information here and in my presentation to help members form a view as to whether they think this is the right approach for next year and beyond. Please, forgive us for not having the paper on time and just bear with us while we just get up to speed with the numbers and etc. But we can make this work in terms of getting a budget to you for February. But for today, what I'm looking for is to get the paper signed off that we can use as our consultation to fulfil our legal requirement to consult on the pre-tech. I'll stop there and happy for feedback or questions.
We aren't setting the budget then, colleagues. We are merely asking for guidance in terms of the consultation process prior to setting that budget. Mark Shelford?
Kevin, thank you very much for that very jolly and inspiring and uplifting brief for Christmas. I feel really happy about the future looking into the but on a happier note, whilst you were talking, I received an email from Bath and North East Somerset saying the 12 things of Christmas. The 12th thing of Christmas for Bath and North East Somerset is we built 1,200 homes last year, which means an additional £90,000 council tax to you on the minimum rate. So that is a positive. We're just giving you a bit more money this year. On the serious point though, I think it's really important to grab together all the worst possible news to make a plan around that, and anything that is better than that, fantastic. And that's why I'm really keen that there should be some proper anticipated work at the worst case of Brexit. Because we've got over 4% of our budget in 2 years' time to find through the pension. And if Brexit causes us to, the country as a whole, to go downhill rapidly, business rates are going to drop out. Certainly we're anticipating that in Bath. I think it'd be really important for us to anticipate what that might mean. I'm not so fussed about the fact that we might not be able to buy new kits or we couldn't get our batteries from somewhere, but I am worried about what the effect will be on our ability to raise money through the system. So if we could do some work in what's the worst case scenario, that would help us put together the budgets and the savings we might have to do if it all goes horribly wrong, and then anything that we don't have to do, we can relax over. But right now we need to plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Chief Officer? Thank you, Councillor. We did bring something to the authority previously, which was, don't look at that right now, but we have been looking at that going on quite quietly, if you like. Certainly from a fire finance network, from the National Fire Chief Council perspective, there's some work going on nationally, and locally, within our service, we have a small team within the finance department and being led by finance, and looking at the impacts, potential impacts for us of a no-deal Brexit in particular, to see where that goes and where that takes us. Hopefully that goes shortly.
When will that produce?
Yeah, we've got a date in terms of when that's likely to come forward.
You haven't actually, I've been really concentrating on this budget, up to just a couple of days ago, but that's something we'll start to look at in the new year in conjunction with firming up the budget next year.
Can I suggest then that we've got the emergency additional meeting on the 31st of January, we haven't got to set a budget before that, we could have that paid for that meeting, please? Is that okay with you, Mark?
Yeah, as long as we've got it in time for you, the financial gurus, to get your hands around it and then anticipate what's going to happen. Not necessarily this coming financial year, but the year after it is where it's going to start cutting in deeply.
Okay. We'll have a go.
Your buttons?
Thank you, Chair. Well, I was going to endorse where Mark's coming from, really. I happened to speak the other day with our former Chief Exec in Bath North East Somerset, who's now in one of the top jobs in DCLG, and it was quite clear that there's a considerable amount of worry there as to where things are going, and we just have to allow for whatever at this moment.
It's all going to be fine, it's going to be simple, it's going to be easy. Putting in my entry.
Well, you never mind my entry.
Well, yeah.
Mr. Rees-Mogg.
Yeah.
They may be correct. Who knows?
As there is nobody else wishing to speak, can I put the recommendations to the vote then? Can I have a proposer, please? Organa, seconded. Your butters. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Lovely. Thank you very much all. Thank you, Kevin, for your first baptism of fire. And thank you, Liv, and the rest of the team. Right, we go on to the Emergency Services Mobile Communication Programme, or lack of update.
Thank you, Chairman. Rob, good afternoon, members. Members will be aware that the ESMCP project, we're basically a new communications project for the British emergency services. So this is for police, fire, ambulance and others that use communication in incidents. And that does include some quite different and diverse agencies that are like the military, coast guard, and rescue, etc. Where we are, the noted, but also asked for recommendation from you around the National Programme Board, which has changed over the last few years, for some of the National Programme Board come and speak to firefighting at next year's, the February next year's firefighting meeting. The background so far is the new ESM programme, the new communication programme, is both for voice and for data. As we know, we're working on an airwave system at the moment. That airwave system is expensive. It's expensive both centrally and for us as an organisation, as it is for police and ambulance across the country. That's been recognised, and the national programme will move towards a new communication, both data and voice. And actually, to start using some of the more digital technology out there is through the ESMCP project. It has had parliamentary scrutiny, I think, at least twice this programme. But where we are at the moment is there is a new business plan about to be released. It was going to be earmarked for a release before Christmas, and it isn't now. It's going to be earmarked after Christmas, a centrally based business plan to work towards. And as you can see in your papers, there is a letter that has gone to the Permanent Secretary, the Home Office Permanent Secretary, from the National Fire Chief, Chair, Roy Wiltshire, and the LGA lead, to express some concerns in the project, namely costs and ongoing costs, but also the potential of with the delay in the project that will be leaving emergency services in the country without a communication system. Obviously, as you see in your letters, members, the reply from the Permanent Secretary is to reassure both Roy Wiltshire and Ian Stevens from the LGA that the costs will be absorbed centrally within the programme going forward. That's not to withstand there will be costs for the authority in buying products. We just don't know what those products are as yet. But the guarantee also, from a risk point of view, of getting to the end of the airwave project, and that then the British emergency services are left without a communication system, and the Permanent Secretary is reassuring the Fire Chief Council and the LJ that will be the case. That airwave will continue until the last emergency service within the country is swapped across to the ESM project. Where we are locally, within Avon Fire and Rescue Service, we've just taken receipt of a network testing product. It is basically a box. It's on our driver training unit. It's there to make sure that the EE coverage is what it is across the Avon area. That will again be spread out with other vehicles. Police will do the same, and ambulances will do the same. And as soon as we start getting some products in the early part of next year for trial, we'll start to be then tried in both handheld fixed products within data terminals within fire appliances, and then also both the communication, voice communication, and then the data communication thereafter. The risk has been identified nationally. It is within the National Risk Register. It's within our corporate risk register as a corporate body, but it's also recognised there is a project initiation programme and document for us as Avon Fire and Rescue Service linking to the regional and national project, albeit we're waiting for the new business case to arrive. And within those project documents there is risk registers, including our own local risk register, around some of the risks that we have going forward and the mitigations for those risks going forward. So I will pause there, Chairman.
Okay. I was going to suggest that we discuss the recommendations, which first of all is to note the report and the attached appendices, which I guess we all have done. The thing I may want to debate with you, unless there are any particularly pressing questions on the disappointing update, is whether we consider inviting a representative from the National Programme Board. I think probably in some ways, rather than asking Rob to comment on what we have written in front of us, maybe a more productive use of our time. I don't know if to move this forward we are prepared to accept those two recommendations and consider, and rather consider, we delete the words consider whether to, but make it to invite.
Yes, I agree, Chair.
So if I can suggest that under that amendment, Bob?
I have a technical question on this.
Is it about standard deviations again?
No, neither that nor normal distribution.
Right, good.
Looking at risk assessments,
Yes.
normally these are at the end of any paper and they're in various colours and they just describe what happens if a big hole appears in the earth and you fall through, what's the likelihood and the impact. Is the risk assessment for this system of that type? It's just a formality in the report, or is there any real risk that the thing won't work?
It's possibly unfair to ask a question, but we may want to pass a comment based on what you know.
I think the risk of the existing risk is either a cost goes up exponentially for us as an authority, or actually that the programme fails to deliver, in which case we continue their way. The permanent secretary has assured us that won't be the case, but there is always a risk that that may happen. So that's been captured in both the national, regional, and our own risk register with mitigation associated with that. But we would obviously, that would be a risk for not only Avon Fire and Rescue Service, that would be a risk for every fire and rescue service in the country, every police force in the country, every ambulance service in the country.
But the system works.
Okay.
We haven't had the products. I think this is part of the problem.
Yeah.
We've got the coverage network in place with EE, which we're testing. The products that work off that haven't yet been produced to begin to us.
So we say we've got a box, Rob, we've got a box. We've got the unit, we've got the box.
Yeah, I was going to show it to members today, but it is literally a black box.
Presumably, the new system is similar to the old system, it just works on slightly different frequencies. No.
Well, we can ask those questions in February, shall we? Sarah Ponton on the radio.
Yes, okay.
I just
I'm
wanted
worried.
to check, because I thought EE was part of O2, which obviously went down recently. Are they building in safeguards? Because to have all blue lights without any communications would be interesting.
We have within our own airwave product now, so we can communicate basically from here to anywhere in the country because it hits the various masts that go within those masts are protected. Now, if one mast was to end up being disrupted, it then diverts to other masts. So we have, in the emergency service context, it's different to your mobile phone context.
But the whole of the O2 network went down, including all the bus stops and everything.
And we've got the resilience. We get the resilience because we're the emergency service. So if it affects the mobile phone system, it shouldn't affect the emergency communication system. But there are partly contracts built into that.
I think, Sarah, keep that question in your mind for February, please.
Yeah, wait and see.
Write it down if necessary. So are we happy then to change that to consider whether and to invite, and the recommendations as on page 203?
Agreed.
Proposer?
No, proposer.
Chris Jackson, seconder?
Yeah.
Yes, it's got to be Sarah. All in favour?
Agreed.
Any against? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. The 13, the forward plan. We're asked to recommend the forward plan. Wait, to approve the revised forward plan. If there's any particular comment, can I put it to vote?
Yes.
Fraser? Chris Jackson, seconder? Mark Shelford, all in favour? Thank you very much. Nobody against, no abstention? Lovely. Number 14. This is about the minutes taking item 14. We've had so much discussion about the minutes, I'm rather lost as to where we are. This is a recommendation of the way forward. I would suggest that we accept this and try this. Is there a debate? Shall we go straight to vote? Have a proposer?
I'll propose it.
Mark Shelby?
I'll second.
Cathy Morris? All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Lovely, thank you.
I think I didn't hear somebody in Sweden say
Yeah,
something.
might be, yeah.
I thought it was in China, he told me. 15, schedule of meetings.
Noted.
Well, bear in mind we're potentially going to change the committee meetings. It is very much for noting, but we all happy with that? Proposer? Bob Darling? Seconder? Any seconder? Finger? Chris Windows, all in favour? Any against? Any abstentions?
One chair, as I won't be here next year.
Okay.
So I better not vote on something I'm not.
Right. Item 16. HMICFRS inspection. I hope members have all had the report. I think, bear in mind, we got it whatever time was this morning. It's possibly rather long for everybody to digest it. I think the point is that we need to, not have read it, but think about what we're going to do about it. Now, the suggestion in my paper is we defer any further comments to the February meeting or discussion of this action plan. Did you want to make any comment, Chief, about, as you were starring on Radio Bristol, the headline 8 o'clock issue this morning?
They're outside me.
Yeah, outside.
Are they?
So no further comments, Chairman, thank you. The report speaks for itself. Members will be aware, I have updated members previously in terms of the likely outcomes of the report. The report is there for members. So you will see actually our response to the report, and you'll see our communications strategy. And that's it. I think we'll come forward in February with the response to that report.
I just wonder, we've got an emergency meeting haven't we, in January. It is quite full. Would it be more sensible to show the public that we're really gripping this quickly by bringing it forward to that emergency meeting?
I'm more than happy to do that.
And then we can look at the action plan to come out of that.
You're happy with that? I'm
Yeah.
more happy with that. Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. We should, action quickly, as long as that's not, you've got the resource to make that sort of thing.
I need to look at that, Chair, but actually,
Well, in principle,
In principle.
so we've got February's back up, but if we could look at
You know, so it is a work in progress, John. It'd be very useful.
a lot of the things are already in progress. I think
Yeah.
you'll be aware of that. So there'll be a cross-mapping reference exercise of what are the things we haven't currently got on our plate that we've already identified. Cultural review and the cultural stuff is already on our bonus, as you well know, and already in train. But there'll be some things that we will need to address for sure.
Just wondering.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm a bit concerned. I was unable to download all this on my council iPad, which is no surprise. And so I'm a bit of a loss. All I know about it is what was on the television this morning. I'm not happy about that.
I'll send you a more easily downloadable report for you.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Mine was sent to me last night.
Yeah,
I can make it easier for you.
I like easy.
Chair, that's the same with, I tried to download it last night and it's just too big a file for these iPads.
Yeah, I don't like you, so I'm not going to say
Yeah, but that's what we've got, I'm afraid.
It wasn't your iPad, it was you, I think.
Yeah.
Well, there is that as well. So,
That's all very well, Chair, but that doesn't include me. I'm sure it doesn't dislike me.
No. We say you'll send it to you. It's minuted.
If it's all the Bristol councils, we'll raise with the Bristol Dental Services team.
No, it was okay for me.
It was okay.
was it?
Okay.
You got a specialist.
That's probably because you know what you're doing.
Press on the action.
Is that your iPad? So, yeah, was that your iPad or on your...
iPad.
Oh, it opened it on an iPad, did it? Oh, right.
As I
Okay.
said, she knows what she's doing.
I'll take that up as well, Shaz.
Thank you.
Right, so item 17, service delivery risk reduction update, is that you, Rob?
It is, Chairman, thank you. Again, members be aware that we've got this reduction strategy that runs for 3 years. We're reviewing that now because of the link with the service plan, linking to the new IRMP. My wish is to have one service delivery strategy going forward, which brings together the operational response, old strategy, and the risk reduction strategy together. Which means that the event testing response is embedded into every aspect of service delivery, which is on its strategic. Within the strategy as is now and moving forward into the new one, we have 4 main elements: children, young people, vulnerable adults, partnerships and technical fire safety. Just to highlight some of the work that the department and the service have been doing within children and young people. Again, we realise that young adults coming up to driving age, they are most at risk when it comes to accidents on the roads. Unfortunately, colleagues of ours do cut young people out of cars on a regular basis due to that risk. So we've been doing pieces of work with colleges in general, mainly South Gloucester and Stroud College and Western College. We've been doing some road safety campaign work with those 2 colleges. Now we do invite all colleges so that we can enter into it and have a discussion with the members training before. A lot of the colleges in the syllabuses are very, very tight, so we don't get access to a lot of the colleges. That's not because of our push, it's ultimately because of the work that's going on with principals of colleges and headmasters of schools. But a key piece of work is working with those young people at that young age up to driving and making them aware of the risks of entering into the freedom of being able to drive. Likewise, just again highlights, we've updated our safeguarding policy. We have had a safeguarding inspection by the safeguarding board, which is deemed to be excellent. That was earlier on this year. We are working again to make sure that we have the whole closure of the evaluation loop of safeguarding. So if a crew or member staff is to experience something in the community that they think is a risk to that family, that's a safeguarding issue. And the work we've now done is actually closing that loop, so we actually go back and review what actions have taken place once we've referred that safeguarding issue to the relevant safeguarding board or social services. Within the Technical Safety Department, we've got a number of ongoing enforcement and restriction notices. This is one of them with a quite serious fire we had in the hospital in Bristol earlier this year. I met with the Chief Executive of that hospital a couple of days ago, and we are working through the legal element of the fire safety order and what that ramification is for that hospital. Likewise, we're working in the Bristol Rovers ground as well around licensing. We're having a few issues with regards to means of escape, and my technical fire safety officers are working to coach that the compliance to make sure that when we hold events at the Bristol Rovers ground, it actually complies with the licensing regulations from our point of view, which is means of escape and fire safety.
It's easy for the games, they'll leave half time.
Within the partnership realms, we again, members this morning would have heard from Mandy Peskett, who's our partnership manager. We have 2 elements of partnership. One is the general community safety partnership, and the other one is the referral element. So we work to try and generate partners across the various agencies that do work on behalf of us, but likewise we can have the referral mechanism back from them. An example would be Western Power. We know that they have a database of people that could potentially be vulnerable to sourcing power, and they can have other vulnerabilities. It's passing that information between the 2 agencies so that we can actually go in and do home fire safety visits or ask the agency to do that on our behalf. And again, most recently we're doing one of our biggest advertising processes we've got in the service is our big red fire engines. And we've gone through a period of wrapping those fire appliances with key messages, and we're moving on to elements of dementia awareness, road safety and organ donations, so that again, being out on the road, there's some sensitivity around this, because ultimately what we don't want to do is turn up to a road traffic collision with maybe some serious casualties and members of the family in that incident, and it's then labelled that obviously there's organ donation on the fire appliance. So the way it's been wrapped is allowing us to cover that up if we need to, if there's some sensitivities going at any future incident. I'll pause there, Chairman.
Okay. The item is for noting. Any questions, comments? Thank you, Rob. Rob Grant?
Yes, I have a little comment. I don't like to create more work ever, but there do seem to be a series of incidents where the cause is thought to be accidental. Doesn't mean very much, does it? It's either a leaking valve or a faulty this or a poor cable insulation. Do you know more than you're putting in the report about the cause?
Councillor, is that the fires? On the fires paper?
It is, I'm lifting it.
So, absolutely. We have more detail why it's accidental, but
that's okay.
Do you have any more comments on the risk reduction? I think we had a very interesting discussion with Mandy and Kirsty. So are we happy to note that?
Yeah.
On to item 18 with fires and emergencies. Rob again.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, it just gives members an awareness of a smash of the incidents we've dealt with since the battle and some of the diverse incidents that we've seen. There's 16 incidents there. I won't go through them, but just wanted to note the 3.22 fire in the Western Tropicana. Obviously, the Tropicana hits the news for a lot of things. Normally, Banksy's in there doing some work. We had an 8-pump fire there. They had actually created within the Tropicana an ice rink. And we had a fire that started within one of the food outlets in there and quite quickly spread to the structure of the ice rink. One lady went to hospital with smoke inhalation, but due to the quick actions of the staff and our first responding crews, 120 people were evacuated with no further other serious injuries. There is some technical fire safety follow-up on this one, because again it's a licensed side, it comes under the licensing officer, and again the technical fire safety team are working to understand if there could have been any faults from a licensing point of view from the responsible person. I'll pause there.
Thoughts about that fires on Western Seafront? Bob, you asked your question. You have an answer to your question?
I've got the answer already.
Are there any other questions? Phil Buckley?
Thank you, Chair. 3 things. Earlier I raised the issue of 10 buses that were set on fire, which seems a rather worrying event. I don't know whether anyone might be able to comment on who might have done this and what's in their mind. The second thing is I've just checked on my mobile phone and it seems that the Gatwick incident is still ongoing, which is extremely worrying. I'm wondering whether it looks as if it's malicious, non-terrorist, but it could give terrorists some important ideas. Whether there's anything that might be done in the case of Bristol. And the third thing is, I'm just wondering if we can get assurance that we can get out of the car park because there's a threat to shut the gates at 4:30. Otherwise, we might need to call the fire brigade.
You're right.
No, 5 o'clock at the earliest.
That's a challenge.
Okay, well, I'm trying really hard.
Yeah, you are. You're doing very well.
Any other questions, comments?
But may I have some observations?
Absolutely. In terms of the 10 post fire in St Phillips, it's deliberate. We're working with the police on that one because it being a crime and arson. We're not yet got to the bottom of that one, but the fire investigation officers have determined that it was deliberate. Identifies the source and the origin, which is where our work finishes, and we hand that over to the police. But we are still in consultation with the police around potential culprits for that crime. The drone incident in Gatwick, I've just read also that they just called the military in to try and find the perpetrators of the drone incident. Likewise at Bristol Airport, we work, the work at Bristol Airport comes under the Local Resilience Forum, so all the potential threats and harm that could occur at Bristol Airport, we work under that, under the Local Resilience Forum. The Chief Fire Officer for the Bristol Airport Fire Service is the executive member of that group. It's interesting to note that a year ago today was a time when the plane came into Bristol Airport and skidded off the runway. So airports seem to be a key factor on the 20th of December every year.
Flying is very bad for the environment, I think, isn't it?
misery you
I'm thinking of our children and grandchildren, Bob, you know.
That's
Constant summer sunshine.
They can't go to New York and run at holes.
No. Or be at home. Western, they've saved Western ice rinks, they can go down there. Right, next meeting schedule is the 13th of February, otherwise tonight we're going to, because we have the extra meeting at the HQ on the 31st of January, which we kindly added to the agenda, so thank you. And now on to item 20, which is to exclude press and public